My name is Yolanda, and I'm a UI UX designer and front-end web developer. I'm right there in the intersection between both of them. Happy designing, happy working with the front-end. I started in 2014 when I was working in the UK, in Edinburgh. My first experience with Drupal was in 2018 when I was working for the University of Edinburgh. And after that, a couple of years ago, I arrived to Spain when I started working for the team that Pedro Cambra leads, Cambrico. And I'm currently on a break, sabbatical. I don't know how to call it. Some days I'm on top of the whale list. Today is a sabbatical, some days is, okay, I'm on a break. So taking some time to learn, to enjoy myself, and to have new ideas for 2025. So you can find here some links for me where you can get in touch. So Drupal.org, LinkedIn, or Blue Sky. So feel free to get in touch. So these are the main points I would like to go through during this talk. The first one is I'm going to give you a little bit of context of what we've been working with in Drupal 8 and 9, and the web standards evolution during this time until we have reached Drupal 9, 10. So I'm going to go through these two steps a little bit faster than the rest one, because I think the fun starts in number 3, when we will start reviewing the status of the front-end tooling, now in 2024. Then we're going to start with looking into the options. I have seen like 3 main options today. One of them is the traditional Webpack. I think most of us have worked with Webpack. And then the new generation tools like Vite and ESBuild. And then after reviewing the 3 of them, we'll compare the 3 of them. So Vite, Webpack, and ESBuild. And we'll get to some conclusions, and you will have time to ask anything you may. So we're going to start with the common tools we've been using in Drupal 8 and 9. I don't know if you've been using anything else. Well, myself, apart from Gulp, Webpack, and LaravelMix, I've been working with Node.js as well. So, but has anyone else worked with anything different? So I think I'm covering pretty much everything. So if we start with Gulp, as we all know, Gulp is not a bundler. Gulp is a task runner. So Gulp is very good when we have to run automatical tasks like minification of images, minification of CSL compilation. But if you want to bundle, if you want to work with the new, not new anymore, JavaScript, is not going to manage that. You need a proper bundler. You need Webpack, you need any other thing that can cope with that work. So the other traditional tool I've been using most of the time is Webpack. Webpack is a bundler. Webpack started, I think, around 2014. So it started for a very specific use, just bundling. And then in 2015, when the new ES specification started adding plugins like Babel to do all the transpiling, and so on and so forth. So with passing the years, the web started adopting the web standards at the same time. Webpack started introducing more plugins. So at some point, Webpack expanded, not just for bundling, and is now also doing all that part that Gulp used to do. So that's mostly everything. So, and we have here LaravelMix. I'm not going to cover much LaravelMix, but basically LaravelMix is a layer on top of Webpack. Makes your life easier because Webpack is not particularly easy if you want to go very granular. Documentation is not very good. So it's faster to manage Webpack with LaravelMix. So as I have just said, with the web standards in evolution, Drupal has been evolving as well. So from Drupal 9.2, we can see in Drupal the support for WebP formats, also the introduction, the lazy load as well, and with Drupal 10, we have the chance at least to see the magnification on the fly. I think that is a great step. So we have all those new changes in Drupal 9, but in my case, it wasn't until we had to do the upgrade to the projects to Drupal 10 when I realized that I had new enhancements in Drupal, and I had a code that wasn't updated anymore. I had tasks in my day-to-day that wasn't needed any longer. So I had to review everything and just realized that we need to do something with those tasks. And for me at some point was, do we need this workflow anymore? And at some point, I had to look for solutions because, as we will see now, what we had wasn't updated, and some, for example, we were using on some projects LaravelMix, and as LaravelMix is the green one, it's not used that much, but as we will see in the next slide, hasn't been updating for the past 2 years. So to me, starting a new project or upgrading to a new one and having there a dependency that has not been updated for the last 2 years is like, maybe we shouldn't go for that. So that is one thing, so forget about LaravelMix. And then I knew when I went here to NPM trends, I knew that Webpack was going to be there. Vite lately is being ramping up and being used a lot, but to be a surprise was ESBuild. So I've not been in touch much with ESBuild, and I haven't heard much about that in the community. So to me, that was a big surprise. So given that Gulp is not a bundler, LaravelMix is not an option for me anymore. So I have 3 options. So with that, well, this is also from NPM Trends, when we can see that here that last time LaravelMix was updated was 2 years ago. We can see here issues of each one. Size, I think it's important to keep in mind always what we are introducing in our projects. So with those 3 tools, what I did was I created a small project, a very basic one. So imagine we have here a very basic page, this is a landing. So we have a couple of libraries, animation, cards, nothing special. But small enough to understand how these three tools are going to behave. So what are my needs? Basic thing to play. So I started with the traditional one with Webpack. So the first things I look is, does this thing bundle properly? Yes, it does. It has 10 years out there, so it does. So does this thing manage multiple entry points? It does it now. It not 10 years ago, I was kind of difficult to do that. Can Webpack manage SaaS, for example, because I don't know how are your projects, but most of my projects have still a Bootstrap working on them, and Bootstrap is based on SaaS. So how is this tool managing SaaS? Well, if you import your SaaS or your individual partials through JS as an import, it is going to work well. So you're not going to have any problem. But you are going to get a big bundle. So if that is the way you like to work with big bundles, that's okay. But it's not my case. The way I work lately is with small libraries, so I have everything splitted, so I don't want big bundles. I have everything in small SaaS, in this case I'm using here SaaS if I need something from Bootstrap, but if I'm going to write something as specific features, I don't even need SaaS. So if you have bundled multiple libraries and you want to compile those libraries as they are, Webpack is going to struggle with that. First thing that I was really surprised is when you introduce those entry points, what Webpack does is creating for one of them is going to create an empty JS file, because it's assuming that you want to work with JS, you need a JS is like, okay. So it's not managing well. So at some point for me was like, what am I doing wrong here? So that must be my mistake. So started looking, how am I going to fix that? And the surprise was that it's part of the design of Webpack. You can see rows and rows of issues. Why, if I try to do this, is generating an empty file. Here is one, but there are lots of them, and there is even a package to remove those empty scripts. It's like, this is very, very basic thing, and to me, that doesn't work anymore. So, and even more, one thing that Webpack does out of the box is it assumes that if a library has some license, you want that license out there. So it's going to generate that for you. Hey, you need the license there. So for every package you're going to use from a different library, it's going to generate that package like, no, I don't need that either. So you need to add specific configuration to remove the package. So not completely okay for me. So next test. At some point when I get so many I start with the very basic things. If at some point with this very basic thing I start having problems, I don't think for such a small project with 4 images and a couple of libraries, you're going to struggle with that. You're not going to be the tool for a big project. So next tool was Vite. So same. Does Vite bundle properly? Okay. Does Vite manage multiple entry points? Okay. Does Vite manage this compilation of SAS properly? Not quite. So again, same libraries. Vite is not going to respect if you have under your styles multiple directories. If you have under your styles different folders and you want to keep that structure, it's not going to keep that. What Vite is going to offer you at maximum is under one directory. But then if you have under that more directories, it's not going to respect that. And if you try to force that, because I spent here a few hours, so I want you to do that, it does, but start generating. So you can see at the end, adding the number 2 and doing weird things, it's like, no. And as you can see here, there are issues regarding that. So it's not managing that well. If you don't have a problem with that and you just like your styles, everything there, it's okay. But again, for my projects where I like to have everything perfectly organized, that doesn't work for me. So at some point, I had all my hopes in Vite because there was a lot of hype. It was like, let's use Vite. But that couldn't be. So at some point, it was like, let's try ESB. Let's see what happened with that. And, well, again, we tried the JS bundle. Great. Does ESB manage the multiple entry points? Yes. How is the compilation with subdirectories? Is that okay? Yes, no problem at all. It's smooth, not a single problem. So how is, to me, the impression of ESB was like very similar to Gulp. So you have all your tasks very well organized, and then you can create your function, and you can decide which tasks go there. So you can include your clean, your styles, your scripts. It's very flexible. You can, even when you have your, because I like to manage everything with the NPM scripts, with node scripts, you can decide if you add different arguments, which one you want to run. It's not just, you don't have to run a single thing, it's just, I'm going to punish one, I'm going to pass one argument and you're going to run this. So it's very flexible and very granular. So, sorry, I just realized this slide is not in English. Why do we need this level of granularity? Well, it happens that to me, for many projects, I have found that I have found like a process where these were created by a person that wasn't a front-end developer. So then you realize that the tasks at some point for me was like, why am I running in this dev task? Every time I change the color of the font, why do I need to run the task for the images? At some point, some projects were like running for 3 minutes. Every time I change a color, do I need to run the task for 3 minutes? That is a waste of time for the client. And for the developer, it's a waste of your nerves. Every time you change something minimal, in those 3 minutes. So, for example, I'm going to share here my workflow. my workflow, normally, I like to work with browser sync under DDEV. There is an add-on in DDEV that works straightforward. You just need to manage which files you need to watch, and it does really, really well. It's fantastic. Then I have a bash script where I do the actual watch of the files. So here is the bash script. So I have this watcher looking for my styles or my JS, and anything changes, I just go to do the compilation of the styles or JS or both of them. For larger projects, you can include images, anything. You just make as big and as modular as you want. It's very flexible. Then you need to do the drush and the browser sync. So that is my workflow. Change, rebuild, drush, but everything needs to be automatized. So to me, it's going through one change here, now, run this. That is not agile at all. So at some point, well, you can imagine here where everything is heading, if we compare, let's go through the data. So let's compare, because I think it's important when you start introducing libraries and everything, be aware of the size and the number of things you are introducing there. Just let's have a look at that. So for such a small project, the very basic thing, Webpack is requiring like 6 dependencies. That in total is 62 megabytes. For Vite, just 2 of them, but beware of the size. It's more than Webpack. Vite, normally when you read about that, this is super fat, it's super light, it's what, but okay, the data is there. Everything has been taken from this website, this package size, so you can check everything there. And then again, ES build, just 2 dependencies, but 2 light dependencies is not the same as Vite. And then the compiling times. Am I going to, again, to put myself into the 3 minutes, or how fast is this process? So, for the same compilation, Webpack took 3 seconds and a half for a super small thing. Then, this is Webpack. This is Vite. Vite sells itself as very fast, but it's not as fast from my point of view. Yes, it's faster than Webpack because there's nothing slower than Webpack. Webpack even have if you go to the documentation, has a specific chapter about performance because it's extremely low. But Vite doing exactly the same thing, just a little bit more. But the winner, 1 second in the compilation against the 3.5. I think it's worth to try, and I think the difference in size of the dependencies, in the build times, the complexity. To me, it took like 30 minutes maximum to create the whole configuration for ES build, and then if you compare that with Vite, the time I spent trying to put the whole thing with Vite, with Webpack, is like a build tool for a front-end developer is a tool that needs to speed your day-to-day. It's not something that you have to spend there days, hours, because no one is asking for that. So it needs to do what is expected to do from that. So not going checking in 3 months if anything is outdated, and again another 3, so it needs to be fast, and the process needs to be easy. So if we go back again to the initial graphic, we can say that from my side, from now on, if I have to choose, if I'm the one in charge choosing for my projects, Webpack it's never been my choice. I have to say that. I don't like the documentation. It's slow, to me, it's not intuitive. You don't have to be here spending hours and hours making that work. If you want if you want something very basic, like it is designed, it's going to be work again. But if you want something very specific, prepare yourself to spend that there some time. Vite, sorry to say that, it's not going to be the tool I'm going to use in my project. So now I can say I understand why people is using ESBuild. So fast, easy to create everything, no a single error. So welcome to my life, Vite. Because it does what is expected, allows modular workflows that adapt to every single developer profile. It has the flexibility to adapt to big and small projects. It has very few dependencies and easy to create the configuration. And that means as well that for the maintenance, if you are going to be the person that is going to maintain that for the next few years, is going to make your life easier and your client as well. It's not going to spend their money. The client wants value in the web, in the components, but not in the process. You don't want to spend lots of money in the process. And it frees developers, of course, from the repetition manual process and increases the efficiency and productivity. And I think that will be everything. I'm not sure if you want to have a look to see the project, but it's just what is expected. I can show you. So let's see, minimize that. Okay, you have here the project. So, well, I have here configuration for Vite, not very big, but doesn't do what it expected. Webpack, again, it's okay, but if it doesn't work as expected, and this is ESBuild. So you can define your paths on your different tasks. One to clean the directories, one to compile, JavaScript, very basic, but works. You decide if you minify it, it doesn't minify, your copy, and the different tasks. And then what else? The other part is browser sync, for example, is super basic and super easy. So, let's see. Okay, so it's very basic. Just here I have my three. So in the distribution folder, because that is the last step of the chain, I have the JS, CSS, and tweak as well. So if we modify a tweak, it also catches the tweak. And what else do we have here? So the watch, I already showed you the watch. So you have one watch for the SAS, you have one watch for the JS. And then, so it handles well everything. So if we go here, straightforward is what is expected. So no problem, just change, then refresh. You do the change in a styles. For example, here, let's see, we have something. Okay, here. You want it red. Because it's like straightforward. Just change in the screen. Nothing else but expected. Just make your workflow smoother. Just that. I think that would be. Is there anything else you would like to have a look or anything? Or from my side, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. So thank you very much for coming. Has anyone a question?
Well, see? Okay, thank you for the talk. I'm a bit confused by all these tools. I also heard about one called Rollup, but it's all Rollup.
Rollup, yeah.
It's only for JavaScript. It's like just to clear my own confusion.
Actually, Rollup, I think, is what is using Vite under the hood. Okay. Let me check. I have the configuration here. I know that Rollup has been used with Gulp. When some projects, they have Gulp and they need that compilation, they use Rollup. But if we have a look here on the Vite, says Rollup options. Can you see here the Rollup?
Okay, so it's like tools that under the hood they use other tools, and okay, it's like.
Vite, the other day I was reading about that, is also using ESBuild behind. So why am I going to use Vite? Is you are using ESBuild behind, so let's use ESBuild.
So basically, your use case is that you just need ESBuild, just use it directly and forget about Vite.
Why do we need that top layer? Okay. To me, it's faster, it's easier to use. So, and I understand why is the chart, everyone is using ESBuild, is no point. At least for a Drupal project. If you have a decoupled project, that might be a different thing. But for a traditional project, to me, it doesn't make any sense.
So basically, if you're only dealing with JavaScript, maybe it makes sense to just use Rollup or standalone, or your project is only uses Sass, don't use Vite or anything of these tools and use Sass directly, no? Like in the command line.
Here I went with Sass because most of my project is because Drupal still is very attached to Drupal, to Bootstrap. It's like, so it's like an example that is covering, at least was covering most of my projects. So that's why I went that route. If you add here a post CSS, for example, if you are using Tailwind, I don't think you're going to struggle there. At least with all the checks, everything has been going through is be quite straightforward. In comparison with the others that I had to spend hours for very basic things, it was like, don't know.
It's quite interesting. Like if you want to use post CSS, like what is the tool that integrates better? Like only ESBuild, or you just have to use Vite is very interesting.
If I had to go with post-CSS, I will. I've seen that yes build is working. It just you just add to.
It's just a plugin, or
It's not even a plugin. You just add the package to your package manager, and then you just call here. Here you have your. Here I'm just running SAS, the same SAS I have here in my. I'm just calling that, and I'm compiling that. So for post-CSS, should be pretty much the same. You just call here your post-CSS. Actually, I had previously a test with post-CSS. I'm not sure, but finally I removed that. Let's see if I go back, if I can find that.
Control-C will get us to post-CSS.
Lots of tests. I've been working here. No. Okay. Can you see here? Post-CSS?
Yeah.
I'm here using post-CSS. It was one of the different tests I ran, so
Cool. Cool.
very straightforward. So, okay. Thank you very much then for coming, and if you want to get in touch, I'm not sure, but in the next couple of weeks, next month, I will probably write an article about this so you can have the chance to read more precisely and everything. And if you want more details, feel free to get in touch. Happy to talk about it. Thank you.